I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. It's been said, the genius is just a greater aptitude for patience. If you want to become a multiplying Christian, you'll need to develop your capacity for patience. Listen today and find out how. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I'm pumped. It's August 5th, 2024, and I am going on vacation tomorrow. I am leaving for Oregon, and I'm fired up. It's going to be a great time, so when you hear this, I will probably be enjoying myself in Oregon. And yesterday was a great day at church. We had a great service. The place was packed. We had a man baptized into Christ, which was great. His name is David. He's been studying the gospel for a while and made that decision. That was just fantastic. We've had 5 men baptized in the last 2.5 months or so. It's been a great summer for us, and God is really working. He's blessing the church here in Tucson, Arizona to grow. We've been growing quite a bit since the beginning of the year, and so that is very encouraging to me. And so I am looking forward to recharge the battery spiritually here by getting away for a couple weeks before the semester starts and have some time for reflection, for getting deep with my relationship with God and with my family. So it'll be a great, great time. And I just appreciate your taking the time to listen to this podcast. If you are benefiting from the program, I'd like to ask you to support it with a gift, because your support enables me to multiply disciples, leaders, and churches and inspire others to do the same through this podcast. All you need to do is simply go to the show notes, and there's a link to support the program. Super, super easy. Thank you so much for your support. The power of patience. James chapter 1, verse 4 in the Living Bible says, "So let it grow, and don't try to squirm out of your problems. For when your patience is finally in full bloom, then you'll be ready for anything, strong in character, full and complete." What an awesome passage. I started taking guitar lessons when I was 14. After playing a little bit, I asked my mom for a better guitar. She bought me a used Ovation acoustic guitar with a built-in electronic pickup. It was a beautiful guitar with a rounded back, and I took lessons at Sanders Music in downtown Grass Valley, California. Jeff, my instructor, was in a band, had long curly hair that was obligatory for any musician in the late 70s and early 80s. He taught me the basics about chords and then started teaching some songs like "Lonely as the Night" by Billy Squier. I learned some parts of the songs, or licks, as musicians call it, but I hit a plateau in my musical skill. I couldn't seem to make any progress and develop the skills I admired in musicians that I heard on the radio. I figured I just didn't have what it took, and I ended up quitting my lessons. I kept my guitar, but remained stuck at that same level of musical skill for decades. Even now, I can still play songs I learned 40 years ago. My mom would tell me wistfully over the years that Jeff, the guitar teacher, told her when I quit that I had the talent and ability to play guitar well. Looking back 40 years later, I no longer think I was missing any musical ability. Now don't get me wrong, I don't see myself as a natural music prodigy like Mozart. However, I think I could have become a competent guitarist had I wanted to. The only thing missing at the time was patience. Had I stuck it out and worked through the pieces of music that frustrated me, I know for sure I would have picked them up and learned them. I wish someone had pulled me aside and shared with me Ben Franklin's words on the subject of becoming good or great at anything. He said, "Genius is nothing but a greater aptitude for patience." What I needed was the patience to endure the boring process of going from an idealistic beginner to an experienced master guitarist. Great guitarists became that way by patient practice of difficult pieces. Eddie Van Halen, guitarist for the band Van Halen, learned to play through patience. When his brother and friends would go out on Saturday night, he would stay home. They'd leave at 7 p.m., and when they came back at 3 a.m., he'd be sitting in the same spot on the edge of his bed practicing his licks. This principle applies to every area in which you want to excel, whether it's a technical skill, work-related skill, relational ability, or spiritual growth. It takes patience to become excellent at anything. So often we start off optimistically envisioning ourselves as doing amazing things, becoming great at something, and then after learning a few easy lessons and making rapid improvement, we hit our first obstacle or barrier or plateau. We try hard and can't seem to make improvement. At this point, we're often tempted to quit or turn our attention to another field or focus for our energies. I like what George Lucas, creator of Star Wars, has to say about this critical moment everyone faces on their path to mastery. You have to find something that you love enough to be able to take risks, jump over the hurdles, and break through the brick walls that are always going to be placed in front of you. If you don't have that kind of feeling for what it is you're doing, you'll stop at the first giant hurdle. I love how he connects love as the fuel for patience. When you love something enough, you'll be willing to push through the boredom, opposition, and times of slow progress. Patience will keep you grinding through to the next breakthrough. If you want to become a fruitful, multiplying disciple, there are a number of skills and disciplines that you must master to have maximum impact in this world. These are things like the discipline to connect with God first thing in the morning, waking up early, the ability to sit quietly and pray and meditate for a set period of time, knowledge of and fluency in the location and use of scriptures, the ability to teach the gospel or study series to a seeker from step 1 to being born again, the ability to speak and communicate effectively one-on-one in small groups and in front of larger audiences, the ability to listen well and ask good questions, the ability to reconcile fractured relationships, the ability to read people and recognize nonverbal cues and body language, the strength to confess sin and come back from a spiritual setback, and fasting. These and many other skills are the tools in the spiritual person's toolbox. They are not easy and are developed only through patience. Many people start strong in their walk with God and then hit their first roadblock. I'd say many, maybe everybody. They drop out of the fellowship because they're unwilling to do the tedious work that leads to spiritual abundance. I needed patience to write my first book. A book cannot be written in one sitting unless it's just, I don't know, a kid's book, I guess. It takes multiple hours and days of consistent effort. When writing my first book on church planting, I forced myself to sit down for 3 45-minute sessions 5 days a week for a month. I knew I needed about 30,000 words to produce a book. That works out to 1,500 words for the 20 days of that month. I would wake up in the morning, say a short prayer, and set an egg timer on my desk for 45 minutes. I would write whatever came to mind during that time. When the alarm went off, I gave myself 15 minutes to use the restroom, check my phone, get fresh coffee, and anything else. Then I'd force myself to go for my second and third 45-minute session. I didn't worry about quality, mistakes, or even excellence during those sessions. All I expected was that I sat in my chair patiently for 45 minutes. In 30 days, I had produced a book. Now, that book is not War and Peace. Okay, it's not what I would call a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. But that book is my first book and fulfilled a lifelong dream. I had to write a book. It was on a topic that I had experience and enthusiasm for. It just took a little patience on my part. While living in Oregon, I read a book by Brian Tracy. He recommended that I spend time every day, what he called, quote unquote, going into the silence, sitting quietly and coming into contact with what he called the superconscious mind. I interpreted that as just another word for God. He claimed that if I did that for 60 minutes, I would start seeing amazing results in my outward life. I was surprised to read this instruction in a business and personal development book. Really, I was just kind of shocked. It sounded so woo-woo in a book that was very much focused on professional success. Now, at that time, I was selling real estate, and I was reading it for help in my real estate career. What he was talking about spilled over into my spiritual life and my work as a self-supporting minister. I thought it was a good idea and started to work on developing a deeper meditation and prayer life. As he mentions in the book, the first 20 minutes are pure torture. It's not hard to understand what's needed. It's hard to sit and do nothing at all. He predicted that I would be immediately tempted to get more coffee, check the time, check my phone, reshuffle my papers on my desk, anything to not just sit there. He was absolutely right. It took patience to force myself to resist those temptations and distractions and to sit quietly and think about God, visualize the future, be grateful for the blessings in my life, or at very least, simply concentrate on my breathing. After I broke through that initial period, I noticed that my breathing slowed, my heart rate slowed, and new ideas started to float into my mind. God would casually drop ideas into my mind. I learned to keep a yellow pad nearby to record the ideas that what he called the superconscious mind would offer me. That's God in my verbiage. The benefit for me has been less anxiety, greater peace, more appreciation of God, and the ability to see beyond my immediate problems to focus on God's power, His love, and His greatness. Many people start meditation practices but soon discard them because of the distracted, crazy thoughts that get revealed when we sit quietly. As Blaise Pascal wrote long ago, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. If you want to get deeper in your devotional life, in quote-unquote what Brother Lawrence called practicing the presence of God, it will take one thing above all, patience. You have to be able to force yourself to sit quietly for a set period of time, no matter what you might be feeling, thinking, or experiencing right at that moment. The victory is in the patient sitting. About 5 years ago, I dusted off my guitar after not playing it for decades. This time, I decided to apply a little patience to my practice. I started lessons again. This time, they were online. The difference this time is that when I hit pieces that I couldn't master immediately, I forced myself to simply keep repeating them until I got the musical piece, what teachers say, under my fingers. It got into my bones and I was able to play it. Now, I'm not on track to dethrone Jimi Hendrix as the greatest guitarist of all time, but I am growing. I'm getting better and I'm able to play complete songs, serve on our church worship team, and enjoy progress in my playing. As Axl Rose says in the song Patience, take it slow, it'll work out fine. All we need is just a little patience. Application. What area of learning, skill, or ability have you started and then abandoned? Was it guitar, piano, drums, programming, computer usage, martial arts, an exercise regime, a foreign language, reading the entire Bible, a deeper prayer life, memory scripture? Whatever it is, ask yourself what role a lack of patience had in your quitting. Did you try until you hit a roadblock and then were too impatient to stick with it through the boring period of skill acquisition? There's power in concentrating on skill acquisition. As Bruce Lee said, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. Before you get good or great at anything, you must go through the desert of repetition without immediate rewards. However, once you make it through, your patience will have rewarded you with a skill that very few others will have. This week, pray about what area you'd like to grow in. What one thing, if you could do it well, would make the biggest difference in your spiritual life, your relationships, your financial world, and your work? Make a decision that you'll patiently learn the skill for a set period of time without quitting, and when you hit a roadblock, view it as a sign that you're on the road to true mastery. Let patience do its work. Thanks for listening. Here's how you can help support the program. First, let your friends know about the podcast. Secondly, read and review one of my books, How to Plant and Grow a Church, or Courage, How to Make This Life Count. You can find them on Amazon.com. Finally, support the program with a gift today. The link is in the show notes, because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, to live a no-regrets life, and to multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day, and make this life count.